Hey everybody, hope y'all doing good today. Today we're going to do something a little different. Instead of doing a little short video here, we're going to make a long one and have quite a few stories of Appalachia. Old memories to haunts and a couple of alien encounters as well. So let's get into it here. The other day I was listening to our brothers Donnie Laws and Jerry King tell about some old memories from the general stores, and I wanted to share a couple of my own. See, way back when I was a kid, there was a general store in town, and you could get literally anything there, from candy to groceries to home goods. It even had an ice cream parlor. It had a Coke fountain. I mean, it had all kind of stuff. And it had originally came from the 20s, and my cousin bought it from the old man that retired. And it's been around our town and in our family for years. My great grandpa, when he got too old to work, what he'd do is he'd jump on that old tractor of his and he'd drive it up to the old store. And he'd sit out front all day long, and he'd be out there smoking on his pipe and cutting up, joking and telling stories. And he'd be out there playing checkers with them old men. Boy, they'd just be carrying on like crazy. And then, see, when I was a kid there, like I said, my cousin bought it, and boy, she had some of the best bologna sandwiches ever was. And usually when me and my brother got to go over there was we was sick. See, right across the road from that old general store was the clinic. And see, Mama would carry us into the clinic, and Dad would walk across the road, and he'd get us a bologna sandwich. He'd get us a cold drink, and if we's real lucky and was real good that week, he'd get us a candy bar or something, a little piece of candy. And see, that way, when we go on up the road to the pharmacy, we'd have something to eat on our stomach, and that way we could take our medicine. And see, there was also another one that was further down that was run by Miss Manny Nix. Now, boy, she was like a mama to all the kids, So she had a general store just like the other one. It had everything you wanted. But every day, the kids would, they'd be walking by and they'd decide they wanted something to eat. So what they do is they put all their money together, and see, when Miss Manny Nix made a sandwich, she put a lot of meat on them. And she had some of the best bologna there. It was even better than the first old general store there. They don't make bologna like that no more. See, the whole group of kids would pile their money together, and two of them would get a sandwich apiece, and another one would get a loaf of bread, and then another one would get some maybe a bag of chips or something, and then the last one would get a drink. Get everybody a cold drink. And what they do is there'd be enough meat on them two sandwiches where everybody got a sandwich, and they had enough chips where everybody got a bag of chips, and then everybody got a cold drink, so everybody got fed. And I see Miss Manny now, if she seen a kid or something walk by and they'd look at the store and they'd reach in their pocket and they'd count their change, and if they kept on going because they didn't have enough money, well, she'd call them in there and she said, "Now y'all come here just a minute." Said, "Are y'all hungry?" And they said, "Well, yeah, Miss Manny, but we don't have no money." Well, for the kids like that, In her apron pocket, she always kept a batch of biscuits. I mean, she'd have dozens in her old apron pocket. And then, see, she'd always keep her bologna trimmings, too. So if she cut one that was too thin, or if it was an end piece or whatever, she'd put them aside. And see, when them other kids would come, she'd cut them a biscuit open, and she'd put them a piece of that bologna in that. And she always kept like dented cans of soda or something like that. And they'd have a drink, and she wouldn't charge them nary a dime, because she thought, with the good Lord blessing her with all her people that come in there shopping, that she could pay it forward. So they didn't nary a kid leave that place without something. And even the kids that would come in there and buy candy, she'd always keep an eye out, because there's always one in the bunch that didn't have enough money to buy candy. Well, she'd tell them, when y'all going out there, tell that one there to stay here. I want to talk to him just a minute. Well, when the other ones would leave, she'd bring them behind the counter. And behind the counter, she had a little glass jar that had all kind of candy. And see, normally, the one that couldn't afford candy would end up walking out with something better than the rest of them had. So she always took care of the other kids, Said not one left without something to eat or something to drink if she could help it. Well, I like to get into a little Hank story here now, too. Now, see, when I grew up, lived in this old house. It was an old trailer. And the piece of property, that old property had been around for years and years and years. I think there had been 3 generations living on it at the time. And, well, Mom and Daddy didn't have a lot of money. So they bought this old trailer from somebody, put on that property, and we lived there until I was 8. But that whole time there was something strange about that trailer. Mom and Dad would tell me that I'd wake up in the middle of the night screaming and crying, and I'd wake up with like welts, like somebody had hit me, or I'd wake up with claw marks on me. Strange stuff. And well, my daddy's brother said, I just don't believe none of that's true, so y'all are crazy, all right? Well, my daddy told him, said, well, we're going to go on a camping trip. You watch the house. And he said, stay in the bedroom. And he stayed in their room and said he woke up in the middle of the night feeling like somebody was watching him. And there was these 2 red glowing eyes just sitting there watching him. Well, needless to say, he didn't stay the night. He left. So, I reckon they got enough of that old trailer and sold it and had a house built there. Well, when the trailer was gone, them old red-eyed spirits was gone, but it still wasn't just right. Said, me and my daddy was out working in the garden, in the fields, and we got to looking up the front yard, and out of nowhere, we seen this little girl. She's about 8 to 10 years old, wearing a pink flowing dress, and she had long black hair. She was standing there watching us, and when we looked up at her, she just kind of run around the corner. Well, Daddy said, well, go check to see who that is, because I don't know who it is, and there might be something wrong. Well, when I run around the corner, she wasn't there. She was gone. And I went and got him. We both searched. We never seen nary a hide or hair of her. And to this day, we still don't know who it is, but you can still see her around the property. And I got to looking into the history of the place a little bit. That's where some strange stuff happens. See, there used to be an old white house on that property. Well, it's been moved down the road a piece, about a mile or 2. And come to find out, in that old house, the old owner, well, he hurt his wife and kids, and then he hung himself. So you never know what can go on at a property. But that right there, boy, that was sure enough scary. Now, now let's talk about something real strange. How about some aliens? I got an experience of my own. Way back when I was a kid, Lord, I couldn't remember the year. It's probably year 2000 or something like that. Mom and Daddy was avid churchgoers. We went every Sunday and every Wednesday. And, well, we was coming home from church and we pulled up in the yard and getting our stuff out, getting ready to go in. And I look up over the tree line. This is probably about a mile ahead of us. You can see a tree line. And I said, Daddy, what is that? And up over top of that tree line, there was a round circle of lights. It looked like a circle, and it had just light bulbs all the way around it, and it was just sitting there spinning in circles. And it sat there for probably 2 or 3 hours. We watched it as long as we could, but then we had to go inside. Eventually, it was gone. But you'd think if it was an aircraft or something, you would hear something. You'd hear an engine roaring or something, but it was dead silent. Just as quiet as it could be, with no sound coming from it. All you could see is them lights. And I think Dad, it kind of scared him, but he told us that y'all just run in the house. It ain't nothing. All that is just it's something from over at the racetrack. Because just around the corner of the house was an old racetrack. But I think it was something else. Because there ain't no projecting light going to be in the air running like circles like that. It was crazy. It was like, say, 20 individual lights in a circle just spinning around. It was crazy. And see, back then they didn't have cell phones and cameras where you could just grab up a phone and record it. And if they did have them back then, well, we couldn't afford them. But now let's talk about church a little bit. As a kid, every Sunday, especially on Sunday, you go to preach and they have us singing and the minister get up there and preach and everything. But what I remember more than anything was after Sunday service was over, the women folk would be up front almost arguing over who was going to get to fix the preacher man dinner that day. And sometimes I kind of envied him because he'd have two of them ladies up there. No, you had fed him last Sunday. It's my turn to feed him. And he'd remedy the situation. He said, all right, ladies, this is what we'll do. I'll come to your house after church for lunch. And then he said, I'll come to your house for dinner tonight before church. How about that? It'd just make them all happy. And I swear, that preacher'd be so full when he got in there, he couldn't hardly walk for the Sunday night service. And boy, talking about that old dinner after church. Oh, my goodness. Mama would be in there early of a morning. Boy, she'd have breakfast, have the eggs and the bacon and all that. But she'd have a pan of biscuits going. And she always fixed enough to have a bunch extra because she knew I love biscuits. Boy, I'd eat that more than I would cornbread. But she'd have a pot of beans on the fire simmering. And she'd have cornbread in the oven. And then she'd be over getting the chicken ready to fry up. She'd have either Dad or my brother one and be over there peeling taters. And she'd send somebody to the garden and they get some fresh slicing tomatoes. some squash and some okra. And boy, she'd fry up them taters. We'd have fried squash and fried okra and chicken and beans and bread. And if it was real special, Mama would fix some kind of dessert, whether it was a pie or a cake, or she'd take and make like an upside down cake. Oh man, with peaches. Or Dad was always one. He'd use mixed fruit in a can and make one that was upside down too. Boy, that was fine eating. Man, that was good eating. And may not have had a lot of money, but we always had a 50-pound bag of taters. And always had flour and meal and eggs. Always had pinto beans. And boy, we always had plenty to eat. Never did go hungry one time. And we might not have a T-bone steak or nothing like that, but I tell you what, we'd have plenty. We'd have a chicken out in the yard or eggs. We always had plenty to eat, boys, I'm telling you. See, I tell you, boy, my mama and my daddy, boy, I loved them to pieces. And today all I got left is my daddy, because, Mama went on about 5 or 6 years ago. But boy, I'll never forget all that stuff she did. Boy, she cooked, clean, and work, and always made sure we was took care of. But see here, I got the love of the mountains. I got that from my daddy. Boy, and we didn't have a lot of money. Dad would always look toward the hills, because there was always money there. And it may not be coins or bills, but there was always money to be made in them old hills. See, when you got to hurting for money, you could go walk in the woods. You could find all sorts of stuff to make money with. Dad he'd find an old twisted up, look like tree branch, and he'd make a walking stick out of it. And boy, somebody'd offer him $20 for it. For just an old stick he found and done a little work to. And he'd walk the hillsides, and he'd gather up ginseng and all kind of roots, and he'd go sell them. And that was more money. To always have something. If we needed clothes or something, he'd look toward the hills and the mountains. There always was an answer there. He come across some old rundown scrap metal stuff, and he gathered it up and he hauled it off. And he found an old mess of jars just sitting out in the middle of nowhere. Wasn't nobody around. It was just empty jars. Well, he carried them and he sold them. And there was one time he was walking along, and he found arrowheads, a big old mess of them. So he took them arrowheads and he sold them. Had a little money. And see, if Dad would get to hurting for money, we would, in the summertime, we'd go head for the woods, and we'd find blackberries, and we'd pick them by the gallon, and people would pay for a gallon of blackberries. Our dad, he would go, he'd take his old chainsaw, and he'd cut up wood, and he'd sell wood, and we just all kinds of stuff. But he never did do nothing illegal like moonshine. He never did do anything like that. He'd always do something where he wouldn't go to jail, because he had to help Mama take care of us. But if we had a bill to pay, he'd go find something. And he'd go up to a property, it was covered in trees, overgrown. he'd offer to clean it up for him, and they'd pay him. And he'd done that a many times, But see, Mama had to work a full-time job, and my daddy couldn't because his back was broke down. But he always, no matter what, he always found a way to make some money. He'd get me and my brother to haul the logs. He'd cut the tree down and cut it up, and then me and my brother would load it. And or he would cut take the chainsaw and cut saplings and all that. Me and my brother would haul them. He would do the main stuff, and then me and my brother would, any kind of heavy lifting, me and my brother would do. But Dad broke his back down in a place that built church pews and church equipment. So he couldn't. After that, Mama had to work because he just couldn't do it. He hurt himself. But he always made sure we had whatever it was we needed. And see, talking about the blackberries and in the woods, I'm gonna tell you about the time my brother got lost. We always went blackberry hunting the same places every year. And this one time it was me and my daddy and my brother, because Mama was at work. And we'd walk miles back off up in the woods and pick our blackberries. And what we'd do is we'd take an old milk jug and we'd cut the top out of it. And we'd take our belts and put it through that handle, and we'd just pick off in that thing. And when we got it full, we'd just set it down. And on our way back, we'd grab them as we went. Well, this one time, we worked all day, and we got her. Normally, we'd do 2 gallon apiece in the morning and 2 gallon apiece at night. Well, this one day, we'd go early. Daybreak, we was in the woods, and we'd pick till about 10, 11 o'clock when it started getting hot. And by that time, we'd be at home eating lunch. And then we'd go back of an evening when Mama come home, and then she'd pick an extra 2 gallons. So we'd pick anywhere from 12 to 15 gallons of blackberries a day. And well, this one day, Mama wasn't with us, and we had to cross a field of corn. But if you over way at the other end of the field where we were going, there was this one tree. It looked different than any other thing. And Dad would just look toward that tree and just keep walking to it, and eventually you'll come up to that tree, and that's where you go in the entrance of the woods at. Well, this one day we went down and picked our berries and come back. Well, my daddy looked, and my brother was missing a gallon of blackberries. And my brother said, "Oh no, I left it down there by the creek." Well, Daddy said, "Well, I've been teaching you boys how to, y'all's way around these woods. You ought to know how it is." And one day, Daddy would lead in, and then the next day, or even on the way back, my brother would lead. And then the next day he would lead us in, and my brother would lead us back out the next day. Well, this one time, my daddy got mad because my brother left that gallon of berries. And he said, "You left that sitting there, and we got to have it. We had a bill come to you." So he made my brother walk himself back. And we waited, and probably about an hour he never showed up. And then at that point, Dad panicked. So he run down through there and was walking the woods. Well, all of a sudden, my brother come up, but it wasn't from the direction that he left in. And I stood where I was at. I was left by myself, but I stood there. But my brother come up, and then me and my brother yelled out, and then here come Dad. And come to find out, my brother headed toward the wrong tree. He was headed in the right direction, but he turned a little bit. And so he ended up walking around the entire field till he got back to us. But he was fine. But boy, I tell you what, my daddy was so scared, he never did let us go by ourselves again. But we had been to that particular area so much, to this day I bet I could still find that place through that field. And it's been years since I've been over there. So, folks, I hope y'all enjoyed this little story collection. This is called Appalachian Story Collection. If y'all like these videos here, I hope you consider subscribing and hitting that like button and ringing that bell for me. Like I said, I appreciate y'all listening. We love you to pieces, and we'll see you next time.